Hello, SHRM family. Welcome to another edition of the WorkplaceTech Spotlight. I'm Guillermo Corea, Managing Director of SHRMLabs, SHRM's Workplace Innovation Lab. I'm your host for this series where we shine a spotlight on some of the most interesting future of work topics, innovators, and disruptive technologies. Before we get started, as usual, some announcements. For SHRM members, just a friendly reminder that the Workplace Tech community is live. This is the TripAdvisor for HR Tech, and it's available only to SHRM members. Please visit workplacetechcommunity.shrm.org to learn more. For Workplace Tech innovators and startup founders that might be listening in today, the application period for next year's Workplace Tech Accelerator is closing soon. The application deadline is November 10th. This is the top Workplace Tech Accelerator in the world, and it's a very competitive program to get into. So submit your applications today. And then finally, for those of you watching on LinkedIn or other social media platforms, please share this live stream and tag SHRM. You can also use the hashtag SHRMLabs as well as Workplace Tech. So let's get into today's discussion, which I'm very excited for. As you all know, human resources is undergoing a transformative change, evolving rapidly to meet the demands of the modern workforce and the complexities of today's business landscape. HR is no longer just about managing personnel. It's about fostering a culture of innovation, embracing digital tools, and creating an environment where both employees and businesses can thrive together. There have been several shifts in HR in the past with the introduction of new technologies, and this is no different, especially because of how the workplace changed due to the COVID pandemic. With the introduction of AI, I'm sure a lot of you have heard a lot about that, blockchain and other new technologies, it is crucial for HR to not only understand these technologies, but be able to implement and embed these tools into your organizations. But HR modernization is about a lot more than just the shiny new objects. So I'm very excited to welcome to this talk today Chris Courneen, VP of HR at MSI Surfaces, and also a member of our executive network. Chris, thanks so much for joining us, and welcome to the stage. And actually, you know what? I just want to give the audience a little bit of context here. So I met Chris, a few weeks ago at our SHRM NorCal conference. He did an incredible presentation on HR modernization. We had a talk afterwards, and I was like, Chris, you've got to come to the Workplace Tech Spotlight. So welcome to the stage, Chris. And maybe before we get going, you can tell the audience a little bit about yourself. And by the way, last thing I'll mention before you do that, Chris is that rare HR professional out there that has tremendous HR experience as well as tech experience. So you guys are in for a treat today. So Chris, I have said a lot, all yours.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Guillermo. So yeah, my name is Chris. MSI is a company, unless maybe you've remodeled your home, you may not have heard about. We are the leading and the largest distributor of countertop, flooring, and wall tile hard surface products. Been around for about 48 years. Our business has evolved quite a bit over that time. We started in the monuments business, so we did the Vietnam Memorial in DC, and from that transitioned into the kind of housing industry. So I'm responsible for our global HR operations. We have operations in effectively every state in the US, multiple locations in Canada, and a little over 650 employees in India that I'm responsible for. So I lead our HR work, our talent acquisition work, learning and development, diversity efforts, all that. And what comes along with that is this question about how do we prepare for our future, and what are we doing to kind of modernize our approach, our workforce, and also the kind of technology that will support the type of growth we see in our business over the next 5 to 10 years.
Fantastic. So let's get right into it, since we only have a short period of time, and we could literally talk here the entire day, right? So maybe let's start off with, so what is HR modernization, and maybe more interestingly, what isn't it, right?
Yeah, I think HR modernization to me is a dual pronged effort, and the first part of it is kind of getting to business fundamentals and re-examining the relationship that an HR organization has with the business, and moving, as you said, from this kind of period of personnel and thinking about managing this separate entity within the business to being really the spider web that covers every part of the business. And so I start usually by challenging folks to tell me what in the world is HR's role within the larger business. And the punchline of that is we are the same as everyone else. I have the same goal that my sales team has. I have the same goal that the marketing team has, or my operations team. And that is for-profit entity, we are here to maximize the profit of the business. And for my friends in the nonprofit world, you're really there to maximize the spend of those grant dollars or those donations towards your business's, objectives and goals and mission. And when you think about the role that way, this modernization effort, I think, starts first and foremost with really upskilling and modernizing your HR organization's knowledge, understanding, and relationship to the business. It requires a level of knowledge and business acumen to be successful, capable, competent HR folks that probably in the past was not thought of as necessary. And so first part of a modernization effort has nothing to do with technology. And it is really about redefining HR's role within the organization and redefining the expectations that we should have of ourselves and how we are partnering with our business leaders and business units, redefining the expectation the business should have of us. It is not about, simply an employee relations effort or a recruiting effort, but really how are we partnering with our leaders to maximize the profit of the company? How am I partnering with my operations teams to make them more productive? And so traditional business topics that I think might have frequently been thought of as not HR's job are really things that we should be concerning ourselves with. So questions around productivity, questions around quality, questions around how are we serving our customers, and a focus on our customers, the business's customers, and how do we as an HR organization influence and improve all those things. And that's probably step one of a modernization effort. And I'll use that to say kind of what it is not. And truthfully, I do not think it is just a technology revolution or evolution within an organization. There is a difference between a digitization effort and a modernization effort. And I would define that as the modernization effort is the overarching umbrella of the things that we just discussed. Plus, once you are ready, a digitization effort where you are re-examining the technologies you're using to support those goals. But if you don't have that foundation, the big shiny object or that piece of candy, which is the new AI toy or a better LMS or a better ATS, is not going to improve business outcomes. You've got to do that foundational tough work first. And I think that's the key understanding of a modernization effort, because that will then help you identify what future technologies will help me meet the goals and the vision that I've created based on that foundational work.
Yeah, and I love what you said about, because this is a message actually that SHRM is putting out there a lot, right? About HR needs to step up and really like lead and really the first step there is understanding your business, right? So yeah, right on with everything that we're saying out there. So what do you think is the biggest mistake that HR teams make when embarking on this modernization journey? And I think you kind of like alluded to it a little bit there.
Yeah, I think there's two big ones that I have made in my career, and I've seen others made, and I've learned a tremendous amount from. And the first one is, trying to eat your candy before the spinach idea, which is jumping straight to a technology solution when you may not either be ready for it, or that technology solution might not be at a core level helping you do that kind of fundamental work, which is how am I improving the profitability of the business, whatever that focus might be. And I think the other big mistake I have seen is as you go through this effort. So let's say you've done the work to upskill your team. Let's say you've done the work to upskill yourself. Let's say you and your leaders are on the same page about the role that you were going to play. And you've been able to put dollars to, hey, wait a minute, let's talk about some of these traditional HR activities because I can tie dollars saved to the business if I improve in these areas. You've done all that great work, and then you identify a technology that you think you need, and as you're trying to find that solution, you lose sight of your vision. You lose sight of all the work that you've defined up front that you want to achieve and what that goal is. And the easy way you lose sight of that is you find a technology solution and it's almost right, but it doesn't quite do this. I know it doesn't quite do this. And it's going to force this other change in our business because of how the software works. And maybe that wasn't something about our business or our process or our workflow that we wanted to change. And so the other big mistake I see is not creating the processes and the flows and defining the vision before examining the technology, and doing all that hard work first and defining what that should be and using that as your guide as you're looking towards your digitization efforts and you're looking at the types of technologies that can fit you. And then what ends up happening is you create a bunch of unintended consequences. Like you implement a technology that either doesn't quite fit the vision you had laid out, but due to a limitation in the software, you've had to change your vision, which I think is a horrible mistake. Or you make inadvertent changes, whether it's about internal flows within HR, how HR interacts with other parts of the business, how other parts of the business have direct access to data, all those things start changing because you didn't realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm now boxing myself in. And so most of that, I think, lives in how we're vetting the various technologies available to us with the unique context of our business and what we're focusing on right now and the problems we're trying to solve in the vision that we have.
Yeah, and along those lines, I personally think that at times HR gets pushed by IT also, right? And I think that this is where HR needs to step it up a little bit and become more tech savvy, right? And any thoughts around that? Do you feel that IT at times pushes HR and HR just basically says, okay, we're going to go with that because they're the ones who know about this stuff and not me, right?
Yeah, and I think this again goes back to this idea of modernization, which is if your modernization effort does not require technology, but if your business's modernization effort includes a digitization element and requires technology, a lot of that brain power should live within HR. I don't think a successful HR organization should be farming out a lot of those decisions to an IT group, because then, Guillermo, exactly what you just described is a risk. And so as you're defining that future vision and as you're building or upskilling your team, one of the elements is within your HR organization, who has the knowledge, the project knowledge, the implementation experience. I'm not saying HR people need to learn like C++ and learn how to code.
Right.
I don't know how to code software, but I have defined and partnered with several IT organizations over my career about what this software needs to do for me. And this goes back again to the vision. If you understand that vision and if you know your workflows, and if you've redefined your workflows from what they are today to what they should be in the future, then a really good project manager with experience partnering with an IT organization is that liaison in many ways. And an HR leader, I think this is an area where you got to roll your sleeves up and get your hands dirty and make sure you're learning a lot, not just about the technologies available, but at a high level about how they work. We're in the process today of a fairly large transformative AI implementation. I sit in on the technical calls because I need to understand how are these APIs working, and is this an API level integration or is this a deeper database level integration? What's the difference between the two, and how is that going to impact my ability in the future to change a workflow? And so having a baseline understanding, in my example of how these APIs are working across 3 different vendors helps me ensure the level of flexibility I need in the future. And it helps me understand in 9 months and 12 months and 18 months, when I need to shift this, what does that mean? And being able to speak the language, at least at a high level, of your IT team, also build that credibility with your team to say, hey, wait a minute, we do have to listen to them. They actually do know what they're talking about. And being able to challenge those assumptions, again, enough to push someone to think, but not enough that, I'm not coding these APIs.
Right. But at the very least, you have to understand the language and be able to talk about it. By the way, shout out to David Silva who's listening in, and he has a great question. So he actually said, please expand on that piece. Where you said changing your vision to fit technology limitations. At times, it feels like we have no choice there. So maybe you can expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, so I'll give you a great example, actually. And sometimes it requires patience in plan B, and other times it requires pushing a vendor. So I'll give you my example. In 2019, we found a vendor we were excited about that we thought could help solve a major productivity problem we had. And that was around scheduling interviews and the amount of time we were spending on a global scale, scheduling and rescheduling interviews. And we had this challenge that they needed to be sequential interviews, so the orders matter. And there was a fair amount of complexity that meant there was a small number of solutions at that time that existed. And we found one. We were excited about it. It was going to save us approximately 20% of my TA team's capacity. Wow. This is a significant improvement. But it couldn't do a number of other things we needed it to do, and it didn't have the level of flexibility we needed so that we could operate the way I need to operate today. Which is I do allow some of my locations to operate, in plan A in one location and plan B in another location. And I would have forced everybody to behave the same. And that culturally would not have gone well here. It would have gone over like a lead balloon. And we actually chose not to implement the solution in 2019. And we put the brakes on the project, said we're going to invest in finding some other productivity savings, and we're going to wait. Fast forward in 21, that same organization could actually do everything we wanted, and we finally signed the contract, and we waited 2 years. So sometimes it's, if the technology is almost there and it's not there yet, you might need to wait. And other times you got to push the vendors. And then when I describe this as being stubbornly true to your vision, one of the things I evaluate vendors that I partner with on is how flexible are you? And how much am I going to mold my process to your workflow, and how much can your workflow mold to my process? It's one of the key elements I vet vendors with. And I have found some wonderful vendors capable of some amazing things that I won't partner with because they're walled gardens with no flexibility. And in my environment, that just will not work. And then lastly, you would be surprised. Vendors can do things, including big names that you would think would push you around. If you push hard enough, you on the edges can get vendors to tweak and modify to work with you. And then if not, you might, need to find a new vendor. And we went through that pain with this project where I consolidated vendors. I ended up having to switch vendors. I'm fortunate. We build a lot of our own software, so I don't have as many third parties to work with. But think about the big job platforms. Think about the ATSs. Think about all those things where, one of the things I avoid personally is the vendor that I know up front is going to be inflexible. And my RFP process, for lack of a better term, is focused a lot on that, because I am going to stay stubborn to my vision, and I'm going to have a lot of no-go issues that if you can't do this, we don't need to keep talking. And what you have to do as an HR leader is figure out what are those non-negotiables and then stick to them and describe and discuss and agree about them up front. And I think it reduces a lot of the pain on the back end, or the surprises on the back end when you go, oh, I guess we really can't do this thing we wanted to do.
Yeah, fantastic insights. We have a short amount of time here, but I would love to hear your thoughts on AI, given where AI has gone this year. So what role do you see AI playing in a modern HR organization? What should people do to remain relevant during this AI revolution? And one thing that I tell people also in regards to being scared about their jobs being taken away, guess what? The only person you have to worry about is the person that knows AI, and if you don't, right? So
yeah, 100%. I agree with that tremendously. Will jobs change? Sure, but the calculator didn't eliminate accountants, right? We still have accountants. The accountant's job changed, right? The computer didn't eliminate the need to compute things. It just changed how we compute and how we engage with those technologies. So I think of AI no differently. Your job today might change. And in fact, I would say your job today should change. And this isn't a future thing. Like if you're doing today what you were doing 5 years ago, you probably are in trouble because you are either not maximizing your own productivity or you're missing out on something that could have a very large impact on the business. So I'll start with in the realm of AI, artificial intelligence is not the term I use. For my team, I call it assistive intelligence because I'm trying to communicate to people that this is a technology that is designed to assist you in the way that when I used to manage a warehouse, I looked at robotics as a way to assist an employee doing a physical job. If I can remove the root tasks, the repetitive processes, and allow you to focus on making decisions, you are significantly better because of this tool I gave you, right? Imagine if we didn't have a calculator. Imagine if we didn't have Excel and everything we'd be doing by hand if we didn't have it, right?
Oh,
AI is very similar. And so I think on the horizon, there's a ton of things. If you are not using a free generative AI tool as a brainstorming partner today, you're missing out. I'll give you a great example. I train managers all the time on how to have difficult conversations, and I'll ask people, how do you give feedback to someone who stinks, who smells really bad? And you watch managers squirm and they don't know how to actually role play this conversation.
And by the way, that's the #1 question that SHRM gets, that our knowledge center gets during the summer. So yeah.
See, now the beauty, not to put your knowledge center out of business, but go into ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT, how do I give feedback to someone who smells really poorly at work? You're going to start to get responses where you're not going to copy and paste and say what ChatGPT is saying.
Yeah.
But it is a brainstorm partner. It is a resource. So that's free. You could do it today. You can do it to help you think. So that's a thinking exercise. And you might pick up a nugget you weren't thinking of. You can do it to absolutely help you draft I'll call it written communications and things like that. But I find it less helpful for me on that and more helpful as a thought partner. The other big one is if think about all the root processes that exist in our HR worlds today, whether you're in a paper system still or you're in a digital system, and start to think about all the tasks you don't let employees do because they're either complicated or the risk of them doing it wrong is high in terms of the impact. And so we give it to HR and let someone in HR do it, let a specialist do it. All of that work is ripe for an AI tool to either combine the access to data and put it directly in an employee's hands, or allow employees to quickly and easily make changes that no longer involve a human process. And same things with our managers. We should be looking at tools where if a manager says, hey, HR team, what do I need to plan for the day after Super Bowl? How many people are going to call out, or should I be upset and asking for help with capacity planning? Well, if I had an AI tool where I could say, hey, what should my staffing plan be for the day after Super Bowl? And it combines itself with a BI tool that allows an AI assistant with an English question to spit back in English. Oh, you should probably upstaff 3 people in this department. You don't need to worry about this department because historically they're fine, and help you shift capacity. That technology is here, right?
Yeah.
Or something as simple as how difficult our systems might be for our employees to learn how to use and manipulate. And the ability to engage with systems using natural language processing, which is largely here today, reducing the cost of entry to learning how to do a job, getting employees onboarded much faster, getting them productive sooner in that life cycle. So as I look at these assistive technologies, the productivity boosts for us, brainstorming partners for us and our managers and our leaders, and systems that eliminate root tasks and root processes. The system we're implementing on a conservative scale for us, we think is going to save us about 30% of our capacity. That's 30% of the capacity that my team can now go reinvest in much higher value added work other than managing root onboarding and offboarding processes.
Exactly. And actually, it makes HR more strategic, right? Just getting rid of those quote unquote, let's call them admin functions or whatever, right? And that's what's really allowing HR to become more strategic. Hey, we have a short period of time here left. Last final question to you. Maybe you can provide some final insights to your fellow HR colleagues that are out there. Why should someone modernize HR?
Now, I will tell you again, back to if you're doing the same thing today that you're doing 5 years ago, personally, you're in trouble. If your business is operating that way, your business is in trouble. If we have all struggled to acquire and hire talent, I think Gartner just published a couple days ago. The number one issue that are on CEOs' minds is it's actually tied almost with a skills shortage, but actually a talent shortage. And those are the top two. And talent ekes out skills, although I think they are related. And really, this is not getting better. It's probably getting harder, right? COVID is not the culprit. Hiring did not suddenly get difficult because of COVID. If we look at historically, about 2 years, year and a half before COVID, the supply and demand imbalance for labor flipped. There is more demand for labor in the US than there is supply. And that is a trend that we are seeing continue. We are not seeing macroeconomic trends that are going to put that back in the favor of employers anytime soon. And so acquiring talent remains difficult. Retaining talent remains difficult. And what worked in 2017 and 2016 is not going to work today. And the businesses that figure out how to thrive in today's macroeconomic labor environments, and this is a global, largely a Western global issue, those businesses are going to really win. And the businesses that are still operating with this old HR model are going to hurt more and more and more. And they're probably not going to even understand why. And so you have this modernization thing is critical to the success of your business. It's not about your career. It's not about your HR team. It is critical to the success of the business. And if the business is not operating in this new world in a better way, you are going to find it's much harder to hire talent, and it's going to get harder, much harder to retain it. It's going to get harder. And the companies that have figured this out are going to take all your people. And without people, the business fails. And so really, I think this is a critical period for businesses in the US in particular, where you can't, if you don't modernize your HR organization, the company is going to struggle.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a wonderful conversation, and we could have kept on going. I saw your presentation at the SHRM NorCal conference, and I know that there's a lot more here that we could have unpacked. So for you out there, the audience, we hope you all enjoyed it as well. If you'd like more information about MSI Surfaces, please visit msisurfaces.com. But other than that, thank you all for tuning into the SHRMLabs Workplace Tech Spotlight. We hope you enjoyed this live stream, and please share it using the hashtag SHRMLabs, Workplace Tech and SHRM, and visit us at SHRMLabs.com to stay up to date. Have a great weekend, everyone. See you soon.